Hey YouTube, this is Brendan with Cusack Prep, and in this video we're going to be discussing how to reduce complex fractions. Now, you know something is a complex fraction because it has fractions within a fraction. So what we can see here is we have this kind of larger fraction that's separated by this bar right here, and then within the numerator of that fraction we have fractions, and within the denominator we have fractions. So when you're presented with a problem like this, the key thing is you have to find a least common denominator within the numerator, and then also a least common denominator within the denominator. So that sounds kind of confusing, so let's just kind of focus on what I mean with that. So what I want to start by doing is I really just want to focus on up here. So this whole section up top. And what I want to do with this section is I want to turn it into a single fraction. Well, the way that I do that is 4 is just the same as 4 over 1. Now, when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we have to find a least common denominator. Up here, that denominator would be 4x. So what I have to do is I have to multiply this by 4x over 4x so that I can make the denominator the same. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at the bottom part, and I can see that here x is just the same as x over 1. So this first term, well, it needs to be multiplied by 16x over 16x. To make sure that it has the same denominator with this part. So let's see what happens when we do that. So 4x times 4 is going to be 16x over 4x, and that's going to be minus 3 over 4x. Down here in the denominator, 16x times x is going to give us 16x squared minus 9 over 16x. Now, we know the rules of adding and subtracting fractions. We can just basically subtract right across the top, but we keep the denominator the same. So what's going to happen next is this is going to become 16x minus 3 divided by 4x. And then in the denominator, we're going to have 16x squared minus 9 divided by 16x. So we can see what's going on here is that we now have a fraction over another fraction. And when we have that situation, what we have to do is multiply by the reciprocal. So dividing by a fraction, 16x minus 3 over 4x, divided by this whole fraction down here, well, that's just the same as taking the top fraction, 16x minus 3 over 4x, and multiplying it by the fraction on the bottom but flipped. So flipping that, I'm going to have 16x over 16x squared minus 9. Now, what can we do with that? Well, anytime you're multiplying fractions, you multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. So putting this in parentheses and this in parentheses, I can really just kind of get rid of the multiplication sign and bring these lines together. So it's a bit of a shortcut. Your teacher might not like you doing that trick. I'm just going to do it to save time. And what I can see is any factors that can be reduced, I'm going to go ahead and reduce here. So if I look at the factors in the top, my factors are 16x minus 3, 16, and x. In the denominator, my factors are 4x and 16x squared minus 9. We'll come back to that one in a second. But what I can see is kind of right off the back, I can go ahead and just cross off these x's because they appear as factors in the numerator as well as the denominator. For 16 over 4, well, that can reduce to 4 over 1. So now what I have is 16x minus 3 times 4. And this thing in the bottom, I can factor it because that's the difference of squares. 16x squared is a perfect square and 9 is a perfect square. So that can be factored using the difference of squareds formula. So that's 4x plus 3 times 4x minus 3. Now, it's possible you need to leave in this form, which is called factored form. Or you may want to distribute the 4 and kind of leave it as 16x squared minus 9. It really just depends on the instructions that you're given. But either way, I hope you found this video helpful. And just remember, the key to starting these complex fractions problems is turning the numerator into a single fraction and turning the denominator into a single fraction, and then flipping them. Hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching.